This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
REI Co-op presents a perfect outdoor moment with the perfect gift.
Woo!
Picture this. You're ripping with your favorite person. Bluebird skies, blower powder, and frankly, you're skiing like legends.
So sick. Another lap?
Thanks to REI's curation, from lid to sticks, you nailed the gift.
No way. How'd you know?
Does it get more perfect than that? Give without guessing. Shop in store or visit REI.com.
Hey, where you been? Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Means and Stefan Krajisnik, and this is a Leave No Doubt pod, but we're not reviewing anything. We're not really answering that question. We are doing something now because we're quite frankly not sure if we're ever going to be able to do it. If we don't do it in this small little window, because Ohio State handled its business and made sure it got a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. Those games do start Friday and Saturday. I think the Miami-Texas A&M game is at noon. I think that's the noon game on Saturday. I probably could have checked this before I pressed record, but listen, we give it to you raw, man. This is how we get. This is how you get it, man. We're natural here. We're not perfect. So while Stefan looks at
December 20th at noon, yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's the noon game. So by 4:30 on Saturday, we'll have officially know who Ohio State is playing between Texas A&M and Miami, which means this week gets to be kind of off-season look ahead. Week to the future. Stefan and I are going to be talking portal stuff today. Gillis and I are going to be talking recruiting stuff tomorrow. And then later this week, we'll get more CFP focus. We got a couple of live shows coming at you this week because producer Brennan's around for the long haul. I'm not going to get into the details of why that is, but just know producer Brennan, the guy who's been making the live show look good. He's going to be around for the long haul. We're really excited about that. But the transfer portal opens on January 2nd. And it closes on January 16th. So there's a good chance that Ohio State season does not end. And the portal where they can, add for the next year will have come and gone. And they will not have been able to really deep dive into it, at least not on this podcast. There are people working behind the scenes on that. Stefan, is it still true that the portal opens again for 5 days after a team season ends?
Yeah. So essentially, an Ohio State player doesn't have to leave before the season ends, right? Like Ohio State will have to start adding and looking ahead to next season while it's still playing theoretically, but it doesn't necessarily have to worry about losing someone as the season is still going on. That obviously adds some difficulties because you have to add and maybe anticipate a little bit who you might lose, which is always a tricky thing to do. But yeah, in theory, if someone is deciding to leave Ohio State, they can wait for a 5-day window until after the season is officially over. They don't have to do it during the portal window, the traditional portal window this year.
Okay. More than likely, though, what we'll see is something similar to last year. Is over the next couple of weeks, we'll see people announcing their intentions of going into the portal. And last year, you had guys like Devin Brown who were in the portal, but they stuck around for the entire college football playoff run. You had guys like Aaron Nolan who went in the portal, and then they didn't stick around for the entire college football playoff run. I'm sure that day we'll have those case by case, right? If obviously the number one guy in terms of portal that people are probably going to have their eye on from the Ohio State perspective is probably Lincoln Kienholz and what he decides to do now that he's lost a quarterback battle and Julian Sand has turned into what he's turning into. Stefan, you're going to have your first offseason where we're not going to care about what's going on with quarterbacks because we know who the starting quarterback is already. And so that leaves us wondering, hey, is Lincoln Kienholz going to be back for another year being a backup, or does he go try to get on the field somewhere for what will be his fourth year of college football in 2026. So those are going to be the types of things we're discussing. We're going to do that here, though, a little bit of anticipation and projecting of what does Ohio State need in the portal? this offseason. And I've put them in the 3 different descriptions because I think Ohio State goes about it with all 3 of these descriptions at times. In terms of the expectation we have for this player when they add them. You have starters. That's guys like Ethan Inyawa and Philip Daniels. When they went and got them, we thought they were getting them with the anticipation that they were going to be starters for Ohio State in 2025. One of them ended up being so. The other one didn't. Will Howard. We anticipate him to be a starter. Tanner McAllister, who was here before you got here, Stefan. We anticipated that was a starter. Justin Fields, that's anticipating a starter. Then you got rotational guys like CJ Donaldson was probably a good example of he's in the mix. He doesn't have to be the starter, but he's in the mix type of transfer portal guy. Quinshon Judkins, he's like a border of both of these things because he was always going to share the job with Travion Henderson. So they didn't need you have to be our starter. CJ Donaldson lends probably rotation to depth while Quinshon Judkins leans more rotation to starter, but that's just because of how their talent level. And then you've got depth guys. A guy like Justin Terry, that's a depth guy, right? Bo Atkinson, who they got in the spring portal, that's a depth guy. The depth guys, a lot of the times are the guys you would see Ohio State go get in the spring portal. But obviously now with only one portal opening in the college football cycle, that makes no sense whatsoever. You have to get all those guys in January between the 2nd and the 16th, or you don't get them at all. So we're going to go position group by position group. On offense, that's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, tackle, and then interior. And on defense, defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, cornerback, and safety. And so for the next 45 minutes to an hour 15, that's what we'll be doing, is breaking down, does Ohio State need to go get a portal guy at this position? And if so, what description of that portal guy do they need? And I think we start with what is probably the easiest spot on the offense, Stefan, and that's quarterback, where in 2026, here's what you could potentially have coming back. Julian Sand as your starter, Lincoln Keenholz and Tavian St. Clair. Keenholz is a 4th-year guy and a backup. Tavian St. Clair in his 2nd year in the program. And then Luke Fahey as your true freshman quarterback. I think Eli Brickhandler is out of eligibility.
That's right, yeah.
He is? Okay. But also there's no rules in college football, so I guess we'll see. But we are living under the assumption that Eli Brickhandler was a 1-year situation. Tristan Gebbia was never really going to play snaps for Ohio State. He was just an older guy in the room. So that's what they could have back. They could have 4 quarterbacks in the room. Do you think Ohio State needs to go get another guy in the portal? And if we want to talk about, I don't think it's flippant anymore to talk about guys potentially transferring. So if we want to add that into the math of how you make your decision, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 elements that make these conversations interesting and maybe a bit, us having to assume a bit because, we have to assume, or at least in this case, I'm going to assume that Tavian St. Clair is still on the proper trajectory, right? He's going to be next year what you would hope from a sophomore quarterback. And I'm kind of going to assume here that Lincoln Keenholz is going to leave. So I'm going to pencil in Ohio State needing kind of like a Eli Brickhandler again, right? Maybe just a veteran guy, a 4th, quarterback with a little bit of experience in that room. Maybe someone who wants to go, down the coaching route and get his coaching career started at Ohio State because frankly, I feel pretty good, again, assuming Tavian St. Clair's on the right path, about a room that has Julian Sand, Tavian St. Clair, and Luke Fahey, right? And obviously, if Lincoln Keenholz is still there, you feel a bit better about it. But even if it's just those 3, it might be scary because you have, no starts, no experience at all behind Julian Sand. But also, you're anticipating that Tavian St. Clair by next year is ready to step in if Ohio State needs him to step into a game for whatever reason, right? So I think if you do go portal here for quarterback, it's probably more of a depth piece, someone you don't anticipate, playing for you at all, but someone who can help you, on scout team and maybe get his coaching career.
It's interesting because Julian Sand might be the best returning quarterback in college football next year, and it still might be one of the youngest rooms in college football because you take away his snaps, you've got Lincoln Keenholz, who's played 62 career snaps this year, and then Tavian St. Clair's played 13. I am going to join you in saying that Lincoln Keenholz will not be playing football for Ohio State next year. I think he's probably going to go find a way to get on the field somewhere else, which leaves us with Tavian St. Clair, who more than likely will head into next season with 13 career snaps as the backup quarterback. This room is going to shape out very similarly to the 2022 room, though Kyle McCord at least had a start under his belt. But you had 2nd-year starter C.J. Stroud as a returning starting quarterback. And then you had 5-star Kyle McCord as your backup quarterback. And then you had Devin Brown as your true freshman quarterback. I think we see a similar situation to that. So I agree. I think they need to go get just an old guy to be in the room. I don't think they need to necessarily go get a guy who is expecting to play here, but the Tristan Gebbia, Eli Brickhandler role probably does have a level of importance next year. Okay, let's move on to running back, where the projected room as of right now is CJ Donaldson will leave it after 1 year. He was a 1-year rental from West Virginia. He'll bring back Bo Jackson as a 1,000-yard running back, James Peoples, Isaiah West, Sam Dixon, Turbo Rogers, and then Favor Akey as right now. That's the only running back in the 2026 recruiting class. Gillis and I, we talked about the legend-based situation. I guess we'll see. It does seem like he's going to end up, when that portal opens, heading to Ohio, but I guess we'll see what happens in that situation. So Legend Bay aside for a second, because Stefan had the cover recruit, but everybody knows what's going on with Legend Bay at this point. It's become the latest example of a very wild commitment of a kid flips from Tennessee to Ohio State, and then on signing day he flips back to Tennessee, and then come to find out maybe he didn't want to do that, and there were some family things and some. It's a big situation, so I guess we'll see what happens there. But outside of that, Stefan, you look at this room, projecting it out to what it could be in 2026, where we think in some capacity maybe Bo Jackson and Isaiah West are at the top of the room. Maybe if James Peoples decides to stick around, he takes over the CJ Donaldson role, and he's like their situational back. And then you've got Sam Dixon and Turbo Rogers and Faber Akey. Does Ohio State need to go find a running back in the portal?
Yeah, I think James Peoples probably kind of the linchpin here. I think if he sticks around, I think the answer is a pretty firm no. If he decides to depart, finding a situational guy like a CJ Donaldson, maybe not the worst thing. But even then, I feel pretty good about where this room is, right? I think you've got some depth. I think you've got, Bo Jackson, Isaiah West are young guys, but they've gotten a ton of experience this year, right? And big moments for both of them. So I would probably lean toward this not necessarily being a position of need. If they went out and got someone, to do the CJ Donaldson role, that's assuming James Peoples leaves, I wouldn't be shocked. But I'd probably pencil this in as an area where I wouldn't be too concerned about what Ohio State does in the portal.
Yeah, I think Peoples is leaving would be the only reason they would need to go get one. I think other than that, it'd be because you have 105 scholarships to fill, and it's like, we have a spot. Why not go out a running back, right? But I'm with you. I don't know if I think when the best two running backs in your room are true freshmen, it just kind of can throw off the math from a depth perspective. But I don't think it matters in terms of a star perspective. Wide receiver. It's crazy because 2 weeks ago we'd be like, no, what are you talking about? They have 5 stars everywhere. You don't need to do any of these things. But unfortunately, we've seen them play football. Let me ask it this way first. If Chris Henry Jr. doesn't sign, if Oregon successfully flips him, do you think Ohio State would have needed to find a portal guy? And what would be the definition of the portal guy based on what we've seen from a room that is going to lose Carnell Tate, but could return Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers, Mylan Graham, Demarion Witten, Quincy Porter, Phillip Bell, Bodpin Miller, Desi Jones. And they did end up signing Jaquaden Guilford, Jaden Rickers, and Brock Boyd.
Yeah, if they didn't sign Chris Henry Jr., I'd probably be looking at this saying maybe you have to find someone who fits maybe your Quinshawn description of, maybe a rotational guy, probably more so a rotational guy, but also can be, starter caliber and maybe push for a starting job, because I would be interested to know behind the scenes what Ohio State thinks of the development of Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter and kind of what the next steps are for them as they go into next season, because I think you and I would both probably lean toward, these guys are very talented and their development, if they have the patience, could end up being really good, and they can be, they can be candidates to seamlessly, step in and help you replace Carnell Tate. But we don't necessarily have that answer for certain yet. And if you didn't have Chris Henry Jr. entering the room, I would probably say you go out and get a rotational guy outside receiver. Obviously, having Chris Henry Jr. helps that a bit, right? You anticipate him being a guy who can come in and I guess at the least compete for a starting job, right? Like, no, we talk about it all the time. You can't put Jeremiah Smith expectations on guys, right? It's such a difficult thing to do. But he's a guy who, is up there in terms of true freshmen that can compete and make plays right away in year one, right? Like, we've seen Quincy Porter, have moments as a true freshman, and I don't even think he's, considered quite in the caliber of even a Chris Henry Jr. So having Chris Henry Jr. probably diminishes a little bit of that, urgency to get an outside receiver. If he wasn't there, I'd certainly feel like that's somewhere they got to go. But even with Chris Henry Jr., I think getting a depth guy and maybe a rotational guy at outside receiver could be pretty important, because I'm interested to see how things play out, right? Are they going to lose receivers now that Brian Hartline's gone, right? Like, does a Mylan Graham or Bryson Rogers or Quincy Porter consider transferring out? I'm in no way, implying or trying to tell anyone that those guys are going to leave. But this is something that Ohio State hasn't had to deal with necessarily in a while, right? Like, that's a position group now that's losing its coach. And we see it all throughout college football. When a position coach leaves, a lot of players either follow him or decide to go elsewhere, right? And there's maybe some guys on Ohio State's roster that would decide to do that. So that'll certainly make things interesting. And because of that, I feel like outside receiver, even with Chris Henry Jr., maybe going out and getting someone between kind of, you kind of expect him to be a depth guy, but if he can develop in the offseason and become more of a rotational piece, I don't think you'd be upset with it.
If Chris Henry Jr. had not signed with Ohio State, Nick Marsh needed to be on the phone yesterday. Like, I almost would have – the video that Chris Henry Jr. put out of him telling Day he was coming, if that would have said, Coach Day, thank you for everything you've done for me. I don't know, man. I thought about it, and I just think maybe Oregon's a better fit for me at this point. I love what you guys – the relationship we built, and I have a lot of respect for you, but it's just – you don't have a coach in place right now, and I'm just not sure enough to go all the way out there when Oregon is up the street at this point for me. Not up the street, but you guys know what I mean. It's closer to home because he's living in Los Angeles now. I think Ryan Day should have gotten off the phone and picked his phone right back up and said, hey, Nick, you want to come spend your last year of college football playing opposite of the best player in college football? You see what we just did for Cardinal Tate? We can do the same thing for you. That should have been the end of it right there. And then when they would have lost to Indiana 13-10, we could have gone, hey, Ryan, do you feel like your week was spent losing a 5-star wide receiver and then adding the best receiver in the transfer portal? And he'd have gone, well, everybody's dealing with the same things. Yeah, but then everybody's not trying to add Nick Marsh after losing Chris Henry Jr., Ryan. Wide receiver is the only position group on the roster who has yet to add a portal guy ever. Like Ryan did that was almost like Brian Hartline's thing of even recruiting. Like, I'm not gonna have portal guys. Like, your journey is your journey, and like the guys you come in with, those are gonna be the guys right there. And I think, and it sounds good when the train keeps moving, right? When Marvin Harrison Jr. is out of here in 3 years, when Chris Olave is out of here in 4 years, because even that one, Chris Olave coming back kind of threw off the train a little bit, right? Because all of a sudden, Jameson Williams looking around like, well, I don't have a spot because Jackson's going to take the slot spot and Garrett's moving back outside the X. I don't have a spot here. I got to go to Bama because the train didn't keep moving. But after that, the train kept moving, right? Jackson Smith-Njigba was gone after 3 years. Marvin was gone after 3 years. Brandon Ennis has not been to the level of Jameson Williams where he's looking around going, oh, Emeka came back for a 4th year. I don't have a spot. Let me go somewhere else and I'll turn into a first-round draft pick. He chose to sit for another year. I think the fact that he wasn't draft eligible probably played a role. I'm not saying that because I know anything. I'm just assuming here. But then also he'll be back, right, for his 4th year. But I don't think him coming back for a 4th year is stalling the train. I think that was, given what we've seen from Ennis, he was probably always a 4-year guy here. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody being 3 and done is special. That's not the norm. It doesn't matter what position group you're a part of. Cardinal Tate being a 3-year player. That's the train is keeping it moving, right? Him leaving technically opens up a spot for Quincy Porter to come take it as a 2nd-year guy. Technically opens up a spot for Mylan Graham to come take it as a 3rd-year guy if he wanted, right? I think Bryson Rogers is in an interesting position where he's got some positional flexibility, but I don't know if I pegged you to it right now and told you, hey, you have to create a starting lineup for the wide receivers in 2026, would you have Bryson Rogers as a starter? Or would you expect Mylan Graham or Quincy Porter to take a step, or maybe Chris Henry Jr. turns into something?
Probably one of those latter guys to take a step, or Chris Henry Jr.
And his position coach, to your point, just took a job in Tampa, Florida, where that's not too far off from where Bryson Rogers is from. And again, we're not pushing guys out the window and out the door here. We're just being realistic about where all these rooms are. I do not think they have to find a portal guy, but I think that they have to have real honest conversations with everybody who is in the room not named Jeremiah Smith or Brandon Ennis. This is the first time since they've started this run of receiver talent where it's like they could lose more than one guy of who's in line to start. And so if they get through those conversations and it's like, okay, our top 5 heading into the spring of 2026 are JJ, Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers, Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter. In terms of outside, and in terms of outside guys, it's JJ, Bryson Rogers, Marlon Graham, Quincy Porter, Chris Henry Jr. And two of those guys are like, we had a real conversation, and I think I got to find somewhere else to go. Then yeah, you have to replace those guys. But I do think the difference between Chris Henry Jr. signing and him not signing is the difference between you need to go find a starter, a guy who's going to compete for a job, versus just finding depth. Yeah, and I do think it's good. Listen, I get it. Brian Hartline, his time here was great, and I understand that it's probably not ending the right way because people don't like what he was as a play caller. But I also do think there is some value to they're going to have fresh eyes in terms of who's in charge of things in that room, whether he promotes from within or he brings in a new guy. And I think it will be refreshing to hear that guy's opinion on where this wide receiver room is heading into 2026.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the slot is maybe an interesting spot too. And I'm sure this maybe ties into the next position group we'll talk about, but it's just what is their approach and philosophy going to be with tight end use and the number of tight ends on the field? And if they feel like 3-4 receivers on the field is something we see more of next year, then obviously number one, depth becomes more important, but depth as specific positions becomes more important. If they feel like they want to, feature the slot a bit more, right? A guy like Brandon Inniss and his role, having someone behind him is important, especially if, something were to happen with Bryson Rogers departing or whatever. So the slot is where I'm maybe more intrigued to see what they decide to do, because I think at the outside they should be okay. Of course, wouldn't be surprised if they decided to get someone, if they felt like they needed to get someone. But the slot I think is going to be really interesting.
In the room right now in terms of slot, like Bryson Rogers can do some slot stuff. Brandon Inniss is a starter, and then you got Phillip Bell, who I think is probably next up in line at that slot position.
Yeah.
But in transitioning here to the tight end position, do you think Max Clare is back in 2026? Because he can come back.
I think he's the most back and forth I'm with, and I think he might come back.
And if he comes back and your top three receiving weapons are Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Inniss, and Max Clare on day one, with some combination of Marlon Graham, Bryson Rogers, Quincy Porter, Chris Henry Jr., I think that's fine. Will Kazmarek graduating, so he'll be gone. Jelani Thurman, Bennett Christian, Nate Roberts, Max LeBlanc, and Brody Lennon are all can return next year. We're not going to say are, we'll say can with all these guys. And then Nick Lauder is their one recruit who's going to be in the development world, so he's not even a part of this equation. Brody Lennon's probably still in development world too, so he's not part of this equation. I don't think they need to go find another tight end.
Is that with or without Max Clare?
With Max Clare, definitely no. Correct. Without Max Clare, please no, because I'm tired of 13 and 14 personnel.
I'm probably with you. I really like Nate Roberts as a tight end. And I think that he can be a very successful tight end. I know Gillis has said this a million times, and it's often used in the context of please stop using him as a fullback.
Yes.
But also in this context of please use him as a tight end, I think he can be really good. And as long as they feel confident with Bennett Christian's development and where he is, Jelani Thurman's development and where he is, I'm with you. You probably don't need to. And like you said, obviously if Max Clare comes back, then this is, a moot point. There's no reason to even think about tight end. That said, if Max Clare leaves and maybe you have some hesitations, right? Maybe it feels like it's a year too early for Nate Roberts to, be a starting guy, or maybe Bennett Christian, Jelani Thurman just aren't there quite yet. I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to go after someone like maybe even starter caliber.
I think tight end is going to turn into if there's a guy where it's like, I mean, yeah, why not? Because to be honest with you, in hindsight, looking how they used the tight ends this year, I think Max Clare is if Max Clare didn't go to Purdue and he was at a different school and that good and just decided to stay put, do you feel like they needed to add a tight end in 2025? Or did they do it because it was Max Clare?
I felt like even when they added him, that it felt like this guy's available. Like, Quinshon Judkins is available. Might as well go after him.
And I think, and you know what? I think that description, sure. That's I don't know if there's a world that exists where we're telling you shame on you for going and adding another really good player who can be a weapon for you. Especially in this world where I think this portal window is going to be a little nuts because it's the only portal window. So there are going to be guys who are really jumping the gun in this situation. So that goes without saying. I think everywhere but quarterback on both sides of the ball. If there's a guy where it's just like, I mean, he's really freaking good, dude. And so we're always going to add really freaking good dudes to our team. Then that goes without saying. That's not the part of the equation here. That's not even starter equation. That's impact player in the portal. If Cam Coleman hops in the portal, I don't care who's on the roster.
Right.
If he says, hey, I want to come to Ohio State, he's going to Ohio State. I guess we can combine tackle and interior in a little bit because it does seem like a lot of these guys are interchangeable. Ohio State could bring back all 5 of the starters in 2026. Do we think all 5 of those guys are going to be starters in 2026? No. And I actually want to take this moment to address something because a couple of our texters, 614-350-3315, have asked about it. Tegra's health situation. I'm not going to say anything concrete about what is going on with Tegra's health, but I will say this with pretty good confidence. Regardless of health or not, I am not anticipating Tegra Shabola being the starting right guard when they play on December 31st. Regardless. Yeah. Whether it's Gabe Van Sickle or Josh Padilla starting, I guess we'll see. That's what the next couple of weeks are for, but I'm 99.9% sure that Tegra Shabola was never going to be the starter on December 31st after the season, even if he was fully healthy. That was worse in rewatching it in the Big Ten Championship game. It has reached a point where I think he's done some good things this year, but that has reached a point where you can't keep playing that if you have guys behind him who are developing. So, tackle, Sareveld and Phillip Daniels are probably going to be back starting at the tackle spots next year. And the depth behind them is Ian Moore, Devontae Armstrong, Carter Lowe, Justin Terry, and Sam Greer. And I think that can get funky if they reach a spot where they feel like one of those guys putting them at guard so they can start another one of these tackles is great. On the interior, Luke Montgomery, Ethan's gone. Deontay Armstrong, Gabe Van Sickle, Javon McFadden, Jake Cook. And then these are the incoming freshmen, Maxwell Riley, Landry Breed, and Mason Wilhelm. And that center, I mean,
Tegra is like he can come back.
Yeah, he can come back. Yeah, that is true. He can come back and be part of this depth situation. And then Carson Hinzman is not talking like he's 100% out the door. So I guess that's open.
Everything points to him leaving, and then everything he does points to him staying.
Yeah, so I get he's not as wishy-washy as Max Clare because one clearly just has more draft stock. But in terms of will he stay or will he go, I don't know. And that's another one of those conversations where I think Dave's going to have to sit down and be like, listen, man, what are you doing? What are you doing here? Because I can't fix you losing you in April anymore. I need to know now if I need to go get somebody for Josh Padilla to battle with at center in 2026. And then Tucker Smith as the incoming freshman. I just penciled him in I don't know if he's going to play center here or not, but they have 4 interior guys. He looks like the one who is probably most built to play center if one of them is going to play center. So that's what I did. Gillis, if I'm wrong, oh well. We'll find this out in the spring. I'm not here to do a projection of a depth chart right now. They have a lot of guys on this offensive line. So barring Caden Proctor going, you know what, I think I can use another year of college football. Do they need to add an offensive lineman in the portal?
Tackle, absolutely not. I think you have 6 guys who can legitimately round out your top 6 at tackle, right? I think we can pencil in Austin Sareville and Phillip Daniels as the starters, but you and I, and I'm sure Gillis is in this boat too, are really high on Sam Greer to the point where I don't know, him being pretty high in the depth chart as a true freshman, which is tough to do as an offensive lineman, would not shock us, right? If he was the 3rd or 4th offensive tackle, I don't think we would be floored by that idea. I think we both still really like Carter Lowe, what he can do there. Ian Moore has shown you proper signs. Justin Terry, they've trusted him to take snaps this year, right? Yeah. Obviously not the traditional, tackle snaps, but he's played meaningful snaps for Ohio State, wearing Caden McDonald's number, but it's happened. So I think those 6 at your tackle, I think you're feeling pretty fine there. Interior is interesting. A lot of it, obviously, I think revolves around Carson Hinzman and his decision. So if Carson stays, I don't know how much of a conversation it is, because if you're trusting Gabe Van Sickle or Josh Padilla to play for you this postseason, I think you feel like their track and their development is where you kind of want it to be, and you trust them to be guys who can start for you on the interior next year. I think if Carson leaves, it becomes a bit more interesting. Because who is your center? I think right now we'd probably assume it's Josh Padilla. And if that's the case, I think you probably would be at least entertaining the option of bringing in a starting caliber interior offensive lineman. And maybe even someone who can play center for you if necessary. I think Jake Cook would probably be the backup center next year if Josh Padilla is your starter. So that would be an interesting part of this conversation. So I think if Hinzman leaves, I think you got to go get a pretty high level interior offensive lineman who can at least compete for a starting spot.
You can't afford to have another Ethan Inyawa. And the good news is I don't think they're going to be in a position where they need to have an Ethan Inyawa.
Yeah, correct.
Where it's and granted, it ended up not biting them in the butt this year, right? Because Austin Sareville turned into a dude. But I do think I like the idea of, you know what? We're going to add a guy. Worst case scenario, he ends up being the guy who starts for us. Best case scenario, the guys we have in the room already beat him out. And we have the problem with Ethan Inyawa is he didn't even turn into a guy they could trust in depth.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
Wasn't Phillip Daniels kind of that though initially? Like we weren't sharping him in as a starter. It was kind of like, oh, he's got multiple years of eligibility. Let's see what he's got this year. I'm trying to think of what I know. We projected Ethan to be the starting left tackle. I'm trying to remember who we projected to be the starting right tackle going into the season.
I think we started with Phillip Daniels because we just kind of said, you know what, the two transfers are going to start because that's what happens in college football.
Oh yeah, and then Austin Sareveld.
And then Austin Sareveld happened in the spring. We're like, okay, well, Austin Sareveld is going to be starting right tackle. And then I don't know, halfway through June, you were like, what if Austin Sareveld is just like the left tackle? Who knows what's going to happen here? Phillip Daniels has probably exceeded our expectations, but I don't think that cancels out the fact that Ethan Inyawa was not playable because it's not like they switched spots. We thought Phillip Daniels would be playable. He just wouldn't be the starter.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, and it doesn't make sense to me. We've been in there every Wednesday evening, and he's one of the last dudes off the field. Every single evening. Him and Tegra, consistently. So the fact that that just hasn't turned into anything is just mind-boggling to me that Tegra hasn't looked great. They don't go to Ethan, they go to Josh Padilla. Okay. Well, Josh Padilla gets hurt, Tegra hasn't looked great. They go to Gabe Van Sickle. They fundamentally flipped their offensive line. Ethan Inyawa's been the backup right guard all year. And now he's on the left side because they want to make sure that Gabe Van Sickle in practice is getting reps at right guard because he's in a rotation with Tegra Shabola. That has gone so far south that it's just, they can't have that happen again. Because that's expensive. So if you can go find a less expensive Ethan Inyawa, great. But you can't spend 7 figures on a dude who's unplayable again. That just can't happen.
Because if your interior left to right is Luke Montgomery, Josh Padilla at center, and then Gabe Van Sickle at right guard, I don't think you're it feels like it's the end of the world. I think you feel like maybe that's where these guys are developing. But getting someone who can compete with Gabe Van Sickle at right guard, or maybe move force some things around for you, I don't think would be the worst thing. So it's rotational is probably the word, or at least the 3 categories to use. Even though it's not, I guess it is a rotational position now because that's what it's been at Ohio State. But rotational, I think in my head is like can compete for a starting job. And I think it wouldn't be the worst thing if they did that on the interior. If Carson Hinsman comes back, I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah. Rotational for me is just like, he's not a starter, but I don't know, if somebody gets nicked up on a play and you got to go to this guy, then we're not going to.
It's hard though. It's hard though because offensive line's not cheap, right? If Ohio State finds a guy that they think can compete for a starting job at right guard, that means there's a program a tier or two below Ohio State that probably says, hey, we need someone to start at right guard, no questions asked. Yeah. That guy might fit the bill, and that might raise the price a little bit. So I don't think it was an accident that Mark Pantoni, when we talked to him on National Signing Day, was like, yeah, ideally you don't look for offensive linemen in the transfer portal.
Yeah, which is why they added 5 guys in the recruiting cycle this year. Who would have thought? Add more recruits.
Like you said, like Austin Sareveld is this team starting left tackle. So I don't know. If Ian Moore starts at like right guard next year, you're not allowed to call me crazy.
No. Listen, for all we know, like Austin Sareveld could be playing center front because that's what they need from him.
It did cross my mind of like, what if Carter Lowe is really good next year and they're like, Sareveld can play interior for us, remember?
Hey, it's no problem. If I see that on the first day of spring practice, I'm not going to be like, what? I'm like, all right.
Right. It's like, Austin Sarevald's back to doing what we all thought he was supposed to do.
Yeah. Okay. I'm actually going to be more excited that Carter Lowe took a step in year 2 than I am concerned about Austin Sareveld. Okay, that's offense. Defense, I think this is going to be fun. So let's take a break here, and then we can start on the defensive side, which again is going to lose a bunch of dudes, and yet still somehow try to produce a top-tier defense. Yo.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
Fire is the only pure thing in this world.
On December 19th, the world of Avatar will change forever.
There's something you're hiding. Tell her it is time.
From director James Cameron.
This world goes much deeper than you imagine.
Get tickets now. Movies don't get any bigger than this.
The day has come.
Avatar, Fire and Ash. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Get tickets now. The Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle. The ultimate bundle at an unbelievable price. Starting at $19.99 a month. On Disney Plus, go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in The End of an Era.
Every single one of us all clicked together.
Battle it out with The Roses on Hulu.
Things are getting a little out of hand.
Oh, you think?
And don't miss The Conjuring, Last Rites on HBO Max.
I don't know how to protect you this time.
All these and more streaming this month. Plans starting at $19.99 a month. Terms apply. Visit Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max Bundle.com for details.
Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Steven Means and Stefan Krajisnik. These are Ohio State's portal needs. We're trying to put them in the 3 different categories: starter, rotation, and depth. Ohio State, again, we're saying this for the 2nd straight year. Man, they're going to lose a lot of guys on defense. They might take a step back. It might take some time. They might need a little bit of development. Except this time we're going to go, good thing they're not starting the season with Texas. You know, they have a couple games to build into it. And then we might leave the Texas game like, I don't know, man, this defense might be better. Let's start up front. Where, as you said, Mark Pantoni said the offensive line is expensive. He also said the defensive line is expensive. But also, he didn't need to say that. We can just go look and see how expensive defensive linemen are. And on the edge, I think Kenyatta can come back. I don't know if he's going to come back. And to be real with you, if he's had a really good year, I know he doesn't have the sack numbers that Caden Curry has. He has 6.5 sacks, which is the same amount of sacks that Arvell Reese has this year. In fact, Arvell just has a bunch more tackles. Kenyatta Jackson's kind of been a monster the last month. So if he continues on this pace and this turns into a situation where Ohio State has another playoff run and they go Jack and JT mode, except they're a step above that, Kenyatta's not coming back. His measurables of the 4 of those guys is the best. And I think if you looking back on it, of the 4, who's got the measurables to be a first-round pick is Kenyatta. I don't think it's going to happen, but his measurables might turn him into like the 41st pick in the NFL draft. So I'm just going to operate as if Kenyatta Jackson is not coming back, and if he does, I'll be pleasantly surprised. Caden Curry is going to be gone. Bo Atkinson can come back for another year, which I think is probably in his best interest. And I think he probably knew that when he got here. CJ Hicks is getting a 5th year because he made it through the rest of the regular season without having to play a 5th game, and now he gets to play in games 5, 6, 7, and 8 potentially. Of course, why not? Then the rest of the room is Joshua Mickens going into his 3rd year, Zion Grady going into his 2nd year as a guy who's been a backup this year in place of CJ Hicks and was looking pretty good. Epi Sistanale, who will be going through his first full season at Ohio State as a guy who didn't early enroll. I think Logan George has another year or 2, so he'll be back. And then on the recruiting trail, they brought in Kari Wilder, which Mark Pantoni talked about in a way that like that kid needs to be ready to play real football for Ohio State 2026. And then Braxton Rembert and Dre Quinn. That's the room expected to come back. Does Ohio State need a portal defensive end? And if so, what's the category?
This is probably the toughest one on the roster. Would you be surprised if I said they might need a starter caliber defensive end?
I was going to insist it.
Because a lot of this depends on Zion Grady and or CJ Hicks and or Bo Atkinson, frankly, taking that next step. And I think Zion Grady might be the one I trust the most in that trio.
I agree.
So, and it's tough. Edge rushers are hard to come by in the portal. They're expensive. The best ones usually don't leave because they're already at elite programs like Alabama and Georgia. But last year, Damon Wilson ended up going in the portal, and he's been a stud at Mizzou this year. And that's a guy that, if I remember correctly, Ohio State was at least, kicking the tires on.
Yeah. That one got weird, though, because isn't he in like a legal thing with Georgia now? So they may be. He's a good football player, but I don't know if, like, from a business standpoint, that would have been.
Yeah, that's true.
A wide move.
That's kind of an example of like caliber of player that could be out there. But it's kind of hard to come by. So I'd probably say you go at least looking for a starter caliber defensive end. And if you don't find one, I think you can trust to some extent Bo Atkinson, Zion Grady, CJ Hicks, try to get something from them. I think if Kenyatta comes back, it's a little bit of a different conversation. But I'm just not sure if that's going to be the case. I think Kenyatta's going to have a pretty good college football playoff. I also think scouts will see that he's being held very often, and maybe that's why some of his numbers aren't exactly what they are. I was still in Indianapolis the night of the Big Ten championship game, and when I got back to seeing some family and friends, we were rewatching the game a little bit, and even my Indiana friends were like, "Oh, that's a hold. Oh, we got away. We got away with the one there." So if I would imagine Kenyatta doesn't come back, this is probably the one position where I'm saying you go looking for the best of the best, right? We said like tight end, like, if someone like a Max Clear pops up, like, yeah, sure, go get him. Like, this might be one where you go try to find that star, that next star, I guess, for you at defensive end.
If Dylan Stewart hops in the portal, he needs to be a Buckeye. I stopped doing that as much. Like, hey, if it was a really good player and Ohio State doesn't land him, then it's a failure over years. That's not. There's a lot of good football teams out there, and there's money involved with these things. But also, you were correct. It is expensive. This is the year to spend the money. In fact, I would say even if Kenyatta does come back, go get one. I mean, what did the Eagles teach us? You can never have too many. You can never have too many guys who can get up to the quarterback. And that's not just. I understand Dylan Stewart's the like ideal if you're an Ohio State fan in this world of like if you could have any defensive end in the country, it'd be Dylan Stewart because you thought you had him as a recruit, and he ended up at South Carolina, and he's turned into everything you thought he was going to turn into. And South Carolina is a bit of a mess, though their quarterback's coming back next year.
Not necessarily.
Also, you thought it was a good decision?
No, I said getting him back is not necessarily a good thing. I like him. I think he's a good player, but I think he got a little overhyped going into this season.
He's such an eye test quarterback that you forget that you actually have to start playing football. Also, did you see what USC is doing? Where they're like announcing that guys are re-signing?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing, man?
I just kept checking my phone all weekend. And it was like, this guy's re-signing here. This guy's re-signing here. And I'm like, what did I miss? But also, like, Dylan Stewart also got a pretty like lucrative deal to stay at South Carolina last year.
Sure.
So I'm wondering what that looks like this year. I'm also very curious, like when something like that happens, like when a Dylan Stewart gets a big deal to come back, is there any element of like it being a multi-year deal, or like there's so much with these deals that is head scratching to me.
It's all these things that you wish you could just, I don't know, treat it like the NFL and actually know what the heck is going on. But again, there's no rules in college football. If I'm an Ohio State fan and I'm looking for and again, we know nobody's in the portal yet. It's a flippant conversation, but it's become a flippant sport. This is how we have to do things at this point. I would be wondering if I'm a fan and I look at a guy like Dylan Stewart. It's like, okay, you got your money. You're going to be a top 10 pick. But quite frankly, he's probably going to be the first defensive player off the board. And the first it's going to be either him or JJ, who's the first non-quarterback off the board. Or like Colin Simmons.
Colin Simmons, yeah.
Right. One of those three are going to be the first non-quarterback taken off the board. That's going to come down to what the team wants in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You got your money. You are a solidified first-round draft pick. Do you want to win? And if you want to win, you're going to go to Georgia or Ohio State, or you're going to go to Texas, or USC. I think might be pretty good, or Oregon next year, right? You're going to go to a team where it's like real simple. They have national championship or bust, expectations coming in the next year. If that's the case, then I think Ohio State could end up being a landing spot for him. Or he could just do what he did last year, where he ends up staying at South Carolina. All these variables are on the table. But like if that type of player hops in the portal, I don't care who comes back for Ohio State. You add that guy.
Yeah, no doubt.
And even like if there's a step below that, I think regardless of what happens, they need to go get a starter level guy. And it's not because I don't believe in Bo Atkinson, CJ Hicks, Joshua Mickens, Zion Grady, Epi Satana. Like we thought Epi looked pretty good.
I thought Epi looked awesome in fall camp.
Right. So imagine after he gets a full spring, because he's never been through a spring. I mean, Corey Wilder, there are people who think they got a steal in him. So they could still have a really good defensive line next year. It's just because I don't think you can ever have too many edge rushers. They're going to lose a 10-sack guy this offseason.
Yeah, and I think what's very interesting with the new portal structure too is like obviously it's tough for Ohio State if they don't know that they're going to lose a guy and he leaves after the championship game and now you have no way of filling that gap. But like you're also kind of forced to project which guys are going to take that step in the spring, right? Like you don't have the benefit of getting through spring practices and saying, hey, maybe Zion Grady isn't quite where we want him to be. Like you got to know that. With Epi Satana, like what you just talked about, what does it look like when he gets a full offseason? Ohio State better know what it looks like when he gets a full offseason, or at least project pretty well, because these are decisions that you have to make now. So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I think what's funny too is the portal doesn't open for another month. This also means that coaches and GMs have had a month of being like, hey, when the portal opens, we could really use a defensive end. what if you entered the transfer portal, my friend? So let's not pretend like any of that isn't going on either.
Yeah. Like, obviously, and we haven't said his name yet on this pod. We probably should. Like, Chaz Coleman looked like a beast for Penn State this year, and he's an Ohio native. And I don't know, you listen to what other people are saying. It just seems like it's the world's worst kept secret that if he goes in the portal, he's going to end up at Ohio State. So he could solve the problem. It doesn't have to be Dylan Stewart specifically, but I do think that a guy, he could, hey, Chaz, you see what we're doing with number 8 right now? He's leaving because of what we did with him this year.
Hey, Chaz, you remember that redcoat who was really nice to you that one time?
Yeah. How about you come replace number 8 for us? Because he's played so much better than what anybody not in the Ohio State bubble expected. He's going to be a top 5 draft pick now. Come do that for us. So I just use that point you just made of, you don't get the chance to go through spring practice and see what your roster is anymore. So if you're not 1,000% certain that, and we can transition this into defensive tackle too, that someone between Edric Houston, Tywone Malone, or Tywan's gone. So Edric Houston, Will Smith, Jason Moore, Eric Mensa, Dominic Kurtz, Maxwell Roy, Trajan Odom, Jarquez Carter, and then the recruits coming in who will be here in January, a lot of these guys, Damari Simeon, Emmanuel Ruffin, Darius McKinley, and Jameer Perez. If you are not 1,000% certain one of them can replace what Cade McDonald is going to leave behind, then you need to go get somebody in the portal who's a starter. And matter of fact, even if you are for certain, what if you had 2 Cade McDonalds?
Yeah.
So I think both end and tackle for me are like, if there's a starter guy and he wants to come to Columbus, bring him to Columbus.
I could have sworn by looking at his bio on Ohio State's website that Tywone Malone does have one more year of eligibility. I could be wrong on that.
He's a 21 recruit, and this is his 3rd year here. He spent 2 years at Ole Miss.
Yeah. Okay. So also, you're right. I don't think so either.
Yeah, but also no rules. So who knows?
That's also sometimes these sites are updated, sometimes they're not. On this website, it says he is a senior academically and has 1 season of eligibility. So I don't. Yeah, we'll see. Whatever. Yeah, I think defensive tackle, you probably need to go get a guy too. I'd probably anticipate that because also like a month ago, we did the podcast of who's going, who's staying, who's leaving, and we were thinking, maybe Caden McDonald's a guy that could be on the edge. Every game since then tells me that he's gone.
I'm the only dude who ended up saying he's going to come back. I'm going to be wrong.
Yeah. Which is and props to him, man. He's been awesome these last few weeks. He was awesome in that Big Ten championship game too, and slowing down Indiana's run game. You have to project with Will Smith, right? Like he's in theory the guy that's going to step in and start at nose, right? Like, and he's looked pretty good this year, and I'm not opposed to the idea of him being pretty good next year, but you got to be pretty confident. Like, I don't think he's flashed this year in the way that Caden McDonald flashed last year. Like, I thought Caden McDonald showed you some things last year. I don't know if Will Smith Jr. has necessarily done that. Edric Houston, I think he's an awesome player, and I thought he was going to be an all Big Ten player this year, and actually he was technically. I think he was like an honorable mention or something by either the coaches or the media. I expect him to take another step next year, get another year under his belt, but that's a projection as well. So I think defensive end and defensive tackle is probably somewhere you're looking, 2 positions where you're looking and saying it's not the worst thing we find a really high caliber guy in the transfer portal. And it's tough to do. It's really tough to do along the defensive line or the offensive line. But I think they're kind of in an awkward spot.
Because you're also talking, I'm looking at the snap counts right now. Caden McDonald, 393 snaps in 13 games. Tywone Malone, 286 snaps in 12 games. I think it was a Wisconsin game where he just randomly didn't play, though he wasn't on the availability report. Edric Houston, 274 in 12 games. I forget what game it was he missed, but it was early in the season. So it's those 3 kind of cluttered together while 2 of those 3 have missed a game. And then Will Smith, 216 in all 13 games. So he's played, but there's a gap in between where those 3 are, where at this point, Tywone Malone and Cade McDonald are their defensive tackles or their starters, while Edric Houston, when they go with those 3rd and long looks, he's the lone defensive tackle who stays on the field, while they'll have Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson off the edge, and then it's Arvell pick a gap or Sonny pick a gap. Arvell pick a gap, but we're not actually sending you anymore because everybody's so scared of you. We don't actually have to send you anymore. They should send him more in the pro season. So, Matt Patricia, please start sending Arvell Reese off the edge again.
Yeah, let's do that again.
Yeah, it's been a while. Fun. It was a fun time early in the season. I just think they need to add, because what's happened is I think Will Smith has done a good job of easing our worries about where the depth at defensive tackle was coming into the season. That's a different conversation than easing our worries about who the starters are coming into a year. If he's your third best defensive tackle next year, great room. If he's got to start, not sure quite yet, to be frank about it. And then we got linebacker. They're going to lose both their linebackers next year. And I think both, if we had the pencil in right now, Peyton Pierce and Riley Pettijohn are the two starting linebackers next year. And we've got Garrett Stover, TJ Alford, and Eli Lee. And then you're bringing in Sincere Johnson, a.k.a. Arvell Reese, number 2, and CJ Santa as 2 Ohio guys joining this room. Do they need a portal guy at linebacker?
I don't know. And I wonder if what you do at defensive tackle and defensive end maybe dictates some of that, right? Because I think with Riley Pettijohn and Peyton Pierce, you kind of need to be able to project and decipher what they can add in the pass rush game. I think we've seen flashes from both of them in terms of what they can do in the backfield. I'd probably feel a little bit more comfortable about Riley Pettijohn and kind of that game record category than Peyton Pierce. Peyton Pierce is maybe more of like a traditional sure tackler kind of linebacker. If you're not too confident what you have at defensive end and edge rusher, then maybe you do go out and get someone who can maybe add an element of that to the linebacker crew. And of course, CJ Hicks is kind of an interesting conversation as well of what exactly Matt Patricia has envisioned for him going into next season. So I'd probably say you don't need a linebacker, but you kind of keep an eye on who pops up, whose name pops up. And also, where do you stand on Sincere and where does James Laurinaitis think he can factor into next year? Because we've seen Riley Pettijohn, have a decent role this year, right? And it can Sincere be a better like Riley Pettijohn's had to be their 4th linebacker. Can Sincere get to a spot where he's your 3rd linebacker next year? I think he probably can, to be quite honest with you. That's a tough position as a true freshman because you have to see, so much that's going on. But if there's a guy like Peyton Pierce next to him who's pretty experienced, I think you'd feel a bit, decently confident about what can happen there. So not a necessity. Maybe keep an eye on who's out there, but I wouldn't stress too much about it.
Before I continue with the linebackers, I just want to bring this guy up because, just throwing names out there of guys that I think are intriguing, that are in the portal already. Well, not in it, but like have the intentions of going in the portal. One guy, UCF, John Walker, is currently in the portal. He played 495 snaps this past year at defensive tackle. He's 6'4", 324 pounds. He had 9 pressures this past year. And the reason I bring him up is Larry Johnson recruited him hard. When he was coming out of high school, he was a top 100 recruit in the 2023 recruiting class. He took an official visit that summer. And I don't know if this story has ever been confirmed before, but there was like a idea out there. When he came on his visit, June 24 of 2022, that summer, he never actually left his hotel room. He just was here. I don't know if that's true or not. 315, if you know if that's true or not, please let me know. I've heard that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I don't know. If you're looking for bodies, 6'4", 324 ain't bad. When you're looking for a guy to replace what Cade McDonald was. Linebacker is such an intriguing position group because I felt like this year's linebackers were just a perfect marriage for what Matt Patricia is and who he has been as a defensive coordinator, where he walked into here and was like, I've worked with you before. We can do that. But is that a mandate for Matt Patricia, who is built around this idea of he's multiple? He takes what he has and he molds it into something versus Jim Knowles, who's like, I need this, and this. And both worked, obviously, right? Jim Knowles won a national title here. We'll see if Matt Patricia's can win we think his can win a national title, but they have to now go out and execute it. But if next year their linebackers, even if, regardless of who the starters are, they're not going to be 2 dudes who are 6'4", 235 pounds and can run like the wind. Right? I'm seeing clips all over the place of Sonny Styles doing things at his size that people who are Sonny Styles' size aren't supposed to do at linebacker. So you're not going to have freak of natures at linebackers. You're going to have 2 really good linebackers in Riley Pettijohn and Peyton Pierce, who I think have both lost this year. But they are not 6'4", 240. So I agree with you. I don't think they need to go add guys in the portal at linebacker. But it's because I think they need to go add starters on the edge. Because what if that's where your freaks are? 6. And then it's like, okay, well then Riley Pettijohn and Peyton Pierce just do typical linebacker things. And it's fine. They're not the guys getting sent on blitzes because you got Chaz Coleman coming off the edge. So I think this year the strength of the defense is the linebackers. I think it might go back to the defensive line next year, but also I think the secondary might be great. I think. I'm never giving up on Devin Sanchez.
You shouldn't.
Ever. Oh, yeah. If I'm giving up on a dude after his freshman year, I don't need to be doing this for him. He's 18, man. Like, what do you want from him?
Especially a dude who's had a pretty good freshman year.
He's had a pretty decent, he's had a real role.
God forbid it's had highs and lows, but it's been a pretty good,
Yeah, I'm sorry he's not Derek Stingley. There's only one of those dudes, man. I'm sorry.
Sorry he's not Jeremiah Smith of the defense.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if I would say JJ, Derek Stingley, Trevor Lawrence are three of the most impressive freshmen we have seen in the past decade. Ironically enough, all of them won national championships as true freshmen. So essentially, if you have a generational true freshman, you're going to win a national title. Iggy's gone. I think Jermaine was an interesting conversation, and then in the last month of the season played out. So I think he'll be back. And then you got Aaron Scott, Devin Sanchez, Jordan Woods, and then Jordan Thomas and Jay Timmons. I have them both on the outside. I know Jay Timmons, they talk about him like he's got some versatility, so maybe he could end up being a nickel guy, but I'm going to put him on the outside, at least for right now. I think they're good.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe a depth guy just to give you another body in the room.
Yeah.
But I think you're good. I think the Bryce West, Miles Lockhart, nickel kind of conversation maybe affects us a little bit, right? Like, how confident are you in them? I would guess they're pretty confident in Bryce West and his ability to play the nickel. And this obviously also kind of taps into the safety room. Mm-hmm. Maybe that has some factor, but if it does have a factor, I think it just factors into needing another. Like your top three, I think you have to feel pretty good about.
What if Jermaine Matthews goes to nickel?
It could, as long as you trust Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez. I don't see why not.
Yeah, but then I'm gonna start getting antsy about that depth at corner, which is why
maybe it's not a depth guy. Maybe it's a rotational guy.
Yeah, I if it was old portal rules, I'd say wait and see. But I think we're good with Devin and Aaron. I think third-year Aaron, 5-star recruit, should be ready to go. I think Devin got his feet wet enough this year that, like, all right, dude, here you go. This boundary corner spot belongs to you for the next 2 years. Have fun. But I'm not going to hate it if you bring in another guy just to.
But if something's not panning out as you expect with Devin or with Aaron, then Jermaine can always move back out, right?
I think, yes. I feel more comfortable. I am not for 100% certain that we're good with Bryce West, Devin Sanchez, and Aaron Scott. And because I'm no longer afforded 15 practices to ease my anxiety, even if it's small, like I'm like 15% worried that like those three are not going to be good football.
They're young. That's all it is.
So it's just more of a. I mean, coaches are paranoid. So if you want to ease your paranoia just by bringing in a vet to make you feel a little better, because it's like, oh no. A guy who's like essentially coming in to make sure these dudes turn out to what they're supposed to be, because if not, we have this guy as an insurance policy. I'm not going to be like, how dare you bring in a transfer here? It's more of that. I don't think they need to go get whoever like the best cornerback in college football is to bring in here, but they need to bring a guy in here who's serviceable just in case. Because the reason I'm saying this is because in 2022 they had an opportunity to do something like that, and they didn't because they trusted what they had in the room with Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, and Jalen Johnson. Denzel Burke was on and off the injury report in 2022 after a good freshman year. Jalen Johnson didn't turn out to be what people thought he was going to be as a top 70 recruit. And Jordan Hancock had a hamstring injury in fall camp, and it essentially screwed up his entire second year of college football. So it's like, now you're left with nothing. So it's one of those situations where you just don't want to be left with nothing. I think they'll be fine, though. Caleb Downs is, I think he's leaving. He hasn't come out and said anything yet, though. So I guess we'll see.
Caleb Downs, I think you can just start looking at NFL jerseys.
I'm just saying, man. Maybe he wants to come defend his Thorpe Award next year. Maybe he feels wrong that he didn't get the Nagurski. He's going to announce another podcast. He's definitely going to do it on the podcast.
Got to.
Josh Downs was even like, hey, how did it feel to play your last game at Ohio State? And he's like, I haven't said anything yet. It's like, shut up, dude. Shut up.
I meant to look this up before we started recording. I wish I had. Josh Downs caught a touchdown today. I would love to know how old Caleb Downs was when Phillip Rivers took his first snap in the NFL. So I'm going to do that while you talk about the safety room. I'm going to look that up.
Please tell me he wasn't born. I think that would be special. Malik Hartford, who's been spending this year redshirting, and it's because he's been in a robot arm for the entirety of this year. I expect for him to be back. And you got Jalen McClain, who I think has turned into a pretty quality. I think he's one of the best safeties in the Big Ten, and I think he'll take another step next year. Leroy Roker, Keenan Nelson Jr., who I think is gone, but he hasn't been a factor regardless. Leroy Roker, Fahim Delane, who's been working with the twos in the absence of Malik Hartford. We expect him to take a step. Then you got Deshaun Stewart and Cody Haddad going into their second years. And then the three incoming freshmen, Blaine Bradford, Simeon Caldwell, and Caden Gebhardt. Interesting room. If the question is, do you think they need the portal guy? I think my question and answer back would be, who's the portal guy? But first, Stefan, do you have an answer for us on whether Caleb was alive?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Caleb Downs was born, his birthday actually was recently, December 10th, 2004. 2004 was Phillip Rivers' first season. So he appeared in 2 games, and I'm trying to make sure those games were before mid-December. Yeah. Phillip Rivers' NFL debut, November 7th, 2004. So about a month before Caleb Downs was born. Josh Downs just caught a touchdown from Phillip Rivers.
He just got a touchdown from a guy who's been playing football longer than his little brothers existed. That's immaculate.
That's crazy. So literally the moment the play happened, I was like, there's no way Caleb Downs is alive for that.
I cannot believe the Colts are doing this.
And it almost worked against like one of the best teams in the NFL.
But it's like, of all the old guys they could have gone and gotten, they went and got Phillip Rivers, who looks like he hasn't picked up a football in like 2 years.
It was inspiring. It's always good to see someone who looks like you out there. So good for Phillip Rivers.
Never give up all your dreams. Even after you've already accomplished your dream and you've moved on from your dream.
If you're a 44-year-old man, you too could be an NFL quarterback this year, this week. Yeah, if you go get someone at safety, like this Dylan Thiedemann pop up in the portal, like that would be my only response. I feel pretty good about what they got. Someone's got to take the next step. Someone's got to, whether it's Fahim or Leroy or whatever it is, someone's got to step up alongside Jalen McClain. But it's nice when you have such a solidified starter to kind of anchor that room and bring along whoever the guy is next to him. So, yeah, I don't think safety is necessarily a position where you have to go into the portal.
And it's not like Malik Hartford's played 0 snaps in his career. He's played a decent amount. It's just this year he's been out. I think with the reason I'm not talking about this one the way I'm talking about corner, where it's like, just to make sure there's nothing wrong with that, is because you're not going to find Caleb Downs in the portal. It's already going to be a gap between whoever their starting safety alongside Jalen McClain is next year and what you're losing in Caleb Downs. This is not Lathan Ransom leaving where it's like, hey man, this was a really good football player. You have to remember, like, that's going to be hard to replace. And then on the opposite end of it, we're like, man, good for Jalen McClain. He's done a great job replacing Lathan Ransom. You cannot project that someone's replacing what Caleb Downs is in college football. It's one of those, if Blaine Blatford comes in here and he actually is Caleb Downs again, we're going to be like, oh my God, they found another Caleb Downs? What? How? Right? We're not going to be like, good job for you, Blaine. You did it. You replaced Caleb. We're happy for you. We're going to be like, man, they did it again. They stole Caleb Downs from Louisiana. Can't believe that happened.
The SEC can't keep Caleb Downs in the SEC.
Just like, how did you do it? Matt Guerrieri. You know what? If Blaine Bradford turns into Caleb Downs next year, Matt Guerrieri will be spending his last year coaching at Ohio State. Someone's going to take him and make him a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So
that might happen. That might happen anyways. So,
and that's going to happen regardless. Yeah. So there's that. Okay. So those are positions. The only starters we have are defensive end and defensive tackle. Everywhere else.
Can I add one as a note?
Yes.
Kicker?
I was going to say kicker and punter because I think their punter is also
I think McGuire might have another year.
McGuire's got another year? Okay.
I think so.
I mean, they also have an Australian punter named Nick McClarty who's just been doing special teams here, man. It's just special. Yeah. Yes. Go find a kicker, man.
Yes. Does Fielding have eligibility?
I think he's also graduating this year. So, but also, I mean, they brought Jackson Corvell in here from Ball State. They brought him in here to battle with Jaden Fielding. I mean, it sounds like at one point in the spring, he did take the job from Jaden Fielding, and then he didn't keep it. So it's like, I don't know, whoever has the job just doesn't want to keep the job, whatever. But yes, they need to
I imagine Corvell's part of the conversation next year. But you have to go out and get someone else, I think.
I don't.
Don't DM people. Don't be weird.
Yeah.
Don't be going after people. We're just having a football conversation here. Yeah. They should probably look at portal kickers.
Yeah, I said that. It's like, it's okay to be mad at Jaden Fielding for missing a kick. It's not okay to take that anger and turn it into something extra. We all have to like control our emotions here a little bit. It's just, yes, Jackson Corvell is here, but he can't beat out a guy who has missed 3 monumental kicks for Ohio State in the past 12 months. And none of those kicks were farther than 40 yards. Like they were all chip shot field goals. So it's I don't care. You know, I literally do not care who is on the roster for the special teams. You need to add specialists. And you need to have multiple competitions. It's the one spot where You know, they always say like your spot as a starter is like penciled in. You can always lose it. It's more or less true for like JJ's not losing his starting spot next year, right? Like Julian's not losing his, right? But sometimes that is coach speak. That needs to not be coach speak at kicker and punter. Every single day, from how you kick, how you punt, how you lift, how you run, how you decide to use your thumb to get in the building, all of it should be graded. Whether you picked up the watermelon or the strawberries in the cafeteria upstairs, whether you decided to sit in that little window where you can see into the indoor field or you sat at a different table. I don't think you've been upstairs yet since we've...
I have not.
Okay, yeah. They typically, every so often, they let us go upstairs. So you'll see what I'm talking about. You just see the window. You haven't seen how big it is yet. Whatever it is, if you're playing basketball on the indoor, in the little basketball court, I don't care what it is, everything needs to be graded every single day. Because this cannot continue to be a thing where we're dedicating significant time to special teams. Figure it out, man. Figure it out.
We just dedicated too much time to special teams.
I didn't even have it on the plan. You had to bring it up on your own. Hey, can I bring up something? You know, the thing that cost Ohio State the Big Ten championship game? It wasn't the only thing, but it was the final straw. Maybe we should talk about kicker, Steven. Oh, yeah, I forgot that happened. Fix it. That's all I got. 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. That's just projecting, looking at 2026, because if this is anything like last year, this is the only time we're going to get a chance to talk about this, because the portal opens on January 2nd, but we might be talking about Ohio State, Georgia, and the Fiesta Bowl on January 2nd. So it's not going to be talking about portal stuff. Cool. But as guys enter, as Ohio State adds guys, because we do expect them to add people in the portal. That's the first place we'll go with that news. 4-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. College football playoff 2025 starts this weekend with the first round home games. Ohio State will await the winner of Texas A&M hosting Miami as the 7-10 game to face the second-seeded Buckeyes in the Cotton Bowl on December 31st. For Stefan Krajisnik, I am Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.